You're listening to the Masonic Light Podcast. Starring Pete Ruggieri, Larry Maris, and Jason Lewis. This podcast is not endorsed by any Grand Lodge, and the ridiculous ramblings of the hosts are their own. So sit back and enjoy some Masonic conversation without pretension. And now, here's your hosts, Pete, Larry, and Jason.
Hey, and here we are, Masonic Light Podcast, episode number 36. 36. So our guest today is a world-famous Masonic artist, Ryan Blythe. And he's on the phone with us now.
Ryan Blythe.
He's
okay.
famous.
Ryan J. Flynn.
There's a Ryan Blythe that has an art studio in town here. That's what got me all screwed up. But he's a glass blower. Okay, Ryan Flynn. Oh,
should we start over?
No, just leave me in bed. Just leave me being stupid on the air. I don't care.
It's about time.
So,
and if you need some hand-blown glass, by the way, Ryan Blythe, you owe us
he's down on South Prince Street. We see maybe he can give us $100 for the ad.
Yeah, there you go.
So we'll start with Larry. Larry, have you done anything Masonically in the past 2 weeks?
Yes, I have. Goose and Gridiron, which continues to amaze me, and we seem to be getting more and more people wanting to come.
Why don't you tell Ryan what that is?
Goose and Gridiron is a breakfast group of basically of Masons who meet once a week, and it's unorganized, unstructured. We have a good time. We spend about an hour and a half together. Yeah, very much like this show, and we keep growing and growing and growing. We need to keep finding bigger places. So that's what Goose and Gridiron is, and it's a great get together.
Yeah, and it's families come occasionally. Like somebody will bring their kids if they're sick or something.
Usually me.
But yeah, like Mason wise, it's like 21 to 90. Usually
age wise, yeah.
Yeah, and probably about 20 men usually.
Usually 20, yeah.
Jason, did you do it?
Well, we also had fellowship, which you or Jason weren't at on Thursday night, which is a younger group of brothers. This is the new guys, the younger group, guys that have been maybe 4 or 5 years. They came. We had a great attendance again on fellowship on Thursday.
So
night.
Fellowship night, Ryan. Larry and I are in the same Blue Lodge, and we meet at one of our brothers owns a pizza shop that has beer. So we just meet in the back room.
It's really a beer shop that has pizza.
Yeah. So everybody just, goes and orders their own food, and we all sit in the back and we just bullshit together. It's fun.
Yep.
Tall Cedars. You went to Tall Cedars?
Well, I did go to Tall Cedars, but I thought you guys could talk about that.
All right. Jason, you have anything to offer?
I went to Goose and Gridiron. I had barbecue at Tall Cedars.
Yep.
I missed your lodge's fellowship night, soon to be my plural membership lodge. And because I had a charity committee for my home
we
lodge.
do have to vote on that, you know that.
I know. And I will not be there for the vote. So
that's a good thing.
I know, right? You guys can talk about me. And I think that's it. Scottish Rite picnic. Yep, that's it.
Jack?
I didn't do Bupkis Masonic. Well, I did Goose and Gridiron, but mostly right now I'm concentrating on getting our basement remodeling done and
for your lodge.
Yeah, for the lodge. And Ryan, I want to talk to you about some artwork for our basement, by the way. Your stuff is absolutely perfect for what we're doing, but we'll talk more about that.
Perfect for the dark basement.
Yeah, well, it used to be the beige dungeon, so now it's going to be the Tun Tavern equivalent. Now we're going we're going for an old English pub kind of feel.
I have a few things.
Yeah, I saw that. So what else? And then we're getting ready for we do a thing called Lodge in the Woods every other year, and we rent a scout camp. Not too far from here, and we do a big steak dinner under the stars, and Grand Master comes with all the Grand Line and all that kind of stuff, and we give out the Masonic Scouter Awards, and Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania has some Masonic activity awards and things like that they give out. It's a good time. We'll get between 200 and 300 people for that. So I'm pulling that together. That's got my attention right now.
You forgot the the picnic at your house that we all went to.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's because I kind of blacked out a little. I forgot. I didn't black out.
So Ryan, we had Jack hosted an impromptu picnic for Ubar Grotto, and a couple of these like hill folk brothers brought moonshine.
Do they listen to the show? That's terrible.
I don't think they have electricity. I don't think
They live on the Ephrata Mountain. Come on, how much hillier can that?
And then we had a little more of a higher pinky out kind of drinking guy that brought his own mead because he owns a meadery.
So we had mead. Yeah,
a lot of good meat in my day.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Everybody seemed to enjoy that.
It was a great night. It was a great
time.
day. It was an excellent day. Excellent day.
Yeah, but now that's it. I've just been learning my part for the 8th degree, intendant of the building. I am Zadok the High Priest. So that's what I'm learning.
There you go.
We got a new mixer.
Got a new mixer.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we might even be able to hear Ryan if he ever talks.
Well,
so what was your week like, Ryan?
Well, I have a 5-week-old, and
Saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, so I didn't do much. My week consisted of me not sleeping and an occasional beer.
Is this your first?
Second.
Okay, so you've been through it.
Yeah. No, but I have been working on a couple of things here and there. I got a new painting that I'm starting. There's a Masonic art show that's going to be the first international Masonic art show in America.
What?
Oh,
Plug.
so
Plug
there's one guy from Poland coming.
Plug it, man.
There's actually quite a bit of
2 Canadians are walking down.
yeah. The one guy in Poland we didn't invite.
Where is this art show going to be held?
It's going to be held at the George Washington Masonic Memorial.
Whoa.
That's close enough to go.
And when is this going to be held?
Sorry?
And when will it be held?
I believe it's going to be in May. It's still in the planning process, but I'm apparently secretary of the whole. I got to work with that, but there's some great guys. It's part of the Association of the Masonic Arts, which is starting to grow a little bit in America. It was a lot. It's pretty good size down in South America, Europe, Eastern Europe. Quite a bit of people in it that just never really picked up any momentum in America because, well, for a time, American Masons really didn't care about that. So
it's hard to put art into pancakes. So
yeah,
Well, you can make like
I'm on the right podcast.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah, if it's all kinds of artists, podcasts would not even be in the back of the bus. We'd be walking behind
we should
it.
set up a table. Absolutely. All right, Secretary, you need to set us up for a table like that. Yeah.
So the rest of the show will certainly be about you, but this American group of artists, so obviously yourself, who else do you have associated with this?
You're taking my stuff away from me.
Is that part of the questions for later?
Well, no, but it could be.
Oh. Don't answer that. Don't answer that.
Jeez. I mean, come on. I worked hard on this.
Ryan, write that down and answer it later.
I am. I'm actually making sure I have a list of things.
All right, so
Our interview tonight will be conducted by Jason Lewis.
all right, so we're going to pretend to take a quick break,
Apparently.
and we're going to come back with an official interview with Ryan Flynn, Flynn,
Yes.
Masonic artist.
Welcome back, folks. And our guest tonight is the Honorable Ryan J. Flynn.
Ooh,
and that's with 2 N's, by the way.
You're an attorney now.
A Masonic artist of actually great repute.
Yes.
I've seen his work online. I haven't seen it in person, but I'm going to tell you, folks, this guy is really, really good.
I have a print in my garage. I bought it from him, or actually Jake bought it. and it's still in the package under my scarves in my box of scarves in the garage. I just remembered.
Oh, gee.
So that was one of the Grand Lodge in Philadelphia painting that you did.
Well, in 2010, Ryan became a member of the Ancient York Lodge, number 89 of Free and Accepted Masons in Nashua, New Hampshire. And one of the things he noticed as an artist was after the decline in fine arts and masonry, he started creating Masonic-inspired works. And he started with 2 large faux stained glass windows, which now adorn the Nashua Masonic Temple. And by the way, the Novum Rose is one of the most spectaculars. That is unbelievable, unbelievable.
Hey, Larry, why don't you ask him a question? Let him talk.
Well, I certainly am. I just wanted to mention he's a 32nd degree Mason. Brother, you past master or master of a lodge?
I'm a current master, actually.
Current master of lodge. There you go.
What are you doing home?
Yeah.
Praying in my sleep.
It's only one night a month.
Okay, basically, one of the things I wanted to know, and I'm going to quote you on something.
Yeah.
Freemasonry, you said that Freemasonry is an organization of men who, when gathered together, strive for the absolute best in all of us, and they settle for nothing less. And you mentioned that you fervently believe that Masonic works of art should strive to meet that same ideal. How did you decide to focus your talents on our craft?
It's kind of interesting. So I went to school for art and art history, and that's how I kind of discovered the Freemasons, because when I studied in Florence, Italy, I learned about 14th to 15th century Italian architecture, which I like to say gets me ready to have a beautiful job at Starbucks.
So what do you do at the Ren Fair?
But I was learning about all this stuff, and the term secrets of the craft came up a lot. And, I saw where these people actually designed the buildings, and it kind of sparked an interest in me to research a little bit more and more, and it came into Freemasonry. So it kind of, I love to research for some sick reason. And I decided to go back and kind of retrace my steps with the Masonic eye. And I discovered a lot of Masonic artists, not only in architecture, but throughout history. And these are some big names in Masonry that, in the world of art, that we're all Masons. And then you start looking at their work, and all of a sudden you start seeing stuff poking out. And that
what's an example of that, Ryan? What stood out to you first early on?
Geez, so many. I guess 2 big ones. I'll do two completely different times. So if you look at what a Masonic lodge is and what we teach and all the symbols and stuff like that, it actually mirrors what was taught in the Renaissance quite a bit, specifically in the Italian Renaissance. So you have Neoplatonic thought, you have mixing with Kabbalah, you have all this other stuff that's coming together. And that was actually being taught in one specific school or academy in Florence during the Quattrocento, or the Italian Renaissance. And you have thinkers like Pico Mirandola, who was putting all this together, and it's almost identical to what Masonry is without the ritual. And then you have Michelangelo, who was a friend of his, learning the same stuff. And when you go back into the Sistine Chapel and you look up and you look at the creation of Adam, and then you look at the expulsion from paradise, and you start seeing all these little symbols and little intricacies that he put into the painting, which clearly have meaning which should not be up there. It kind of broadens your eyes.
Shh, don't tell the Pope.
Yeah. Oh, here's a fun fact. If you walk under the main doors of the Sistine Chapel, up top is the Pope getting flipped off by God.
Nice.
What?
Yeah. Michelangelo put the Pope's face as Saint Zechariah right over the main doors. And if you look closely at it, everybody go online, Sistine Chapel, Zechariah, you'll look at it, and that's the Pope's face. And then behind it, there's 2 putti, which are like cherubs. They represent God. And they're doing this thing where they take their thumb and they stick it in between the your middle finger and your...
It's Italian. It's Italian.
Middle finger and pointer finger. You kind of stick your thumb through it. And then Renaissance Italy, that was called biting the fig, which is equivalent to flipping you off. So you have two representations of God flipping off the Pope.
We have an actual fig right here if you want to.
There you go.
You also said that, and I'm going to quote you again, substance is what drives good art. And it is what drives me to create works that truly honors the craft that I so dearly love. In Thy Name We Have Assembled is probably one of the great paintings in Freemasonry. And it's one of the most beautiful paintings that I feel captures the essence of Freemasonry. What inspired you to create this masterpiece?
Well, the person in the painting was a past Grand Chaplain of the state of New Hampshire, Grand Lodge, New Hampshire, and Max was one of those guys who was born for the role he was in Masonry. When he prayed at the altar, you felt God. He was that. I guess pious is the word. He just accented the aspect of faith in Freemasonry when he was at the altar. I had a friend who was taking photos of an officer installation, and I said to her, when this happens, I want this shot. And she got it for me. And the idea of light coming down and reflecting off the volume of sacred law into his face, I thought was a beautiful allegory to what was happening in the painting. So, did some test paintings and came up with a great lighting, and there it is. And I was shocked at how easily that painting came out of me. Usually it takes me a very long time to paint a painting, and that one, that was the first try. Didn't really have to do any edits to it. It just came out great.
That's pretty much how the podcast happened for us too.
It's the light reflecting off of the microphones.
Clearly, we both drink as much as I did while I was painting too. So.
I mentioned earlier that Novum Rose was, and it was my opinion, I think it's everybody here who is actually seeing that, is a magnificent work for stained glass. And of course, you made it available in prints as well. And you can go to online and you can order this print. It is magnificent. Tell us what inspired you to do that? Because it's kind of a change in direction for you.
Well, in studying art, I was very lucky. I went to a private high school, and my art teacher and my art department had everything and anything you could work on. So I was lucky enough to be taught how to do stained glass, mosaic work, all these mediums that aren't really used as much. And stained glass I love because when I developed my own kind of abstract style in college, it was almost geometric in nature. And I noticed that I was kind of following the patterns of what you would do for letting a stained glass window. So when I got back into Freemasonry, I was purposely trying to stay away from abstract art. I didn't think Masonry needed that from me. I can get into that later if you want. But I went back to stained glass because I'd already done 2 windows and they came out great. And I had this fantastic idea that if we had a stained glass window that you could light up during a degree. First, I thought, what if we did the 9 emblems? And while you're doing the history in the 3rd degree, each emblem would light up individually. And then when you're done, you had this beautiful rose window staring you down with everything.
Wow.
Sounds like Gettysburg in the...
I can see a brother working that light control panel.
Yeah, well, the windows that I put in my lodge, we have lights in them. And I'll tell you, one of my favorite moments as a Mason was that first time we did an EA degree and brought the candidate to light, and he saw what he saw, and then the 2 windows lit up above him, and I saw the look on his face, and it was pretty special. So I thought, well, we could do this with other degrees too. And ever since I've been doing Masonic art, everybody's been begging me to do tracing boards, and I wanted to come up with a different way of doing them instead of just a board, and that's where the Novum Rose came from.
Yeah, I think you did a great vision of a tracing board. I really did. Really do.
So you do some other things. You do like illuminated certificates and things like that. Is that a large part of what you do, or is it you prefer the art?
Right now it is. I do certificates, like I said, are patents. And I do everything from, I try to keep them as inexpensive as possible. So most of what I do are G-clay prints, which can last 100 years in daylight. So if you put them in a frame, they'll last forever. And then I gild them like an illuminated document where I put 24 karat gold and hammer it on there and glue it down and get patterns. Once in a while, I'm lucky enough, I actually do an authentic patent, which is done the exact same way as they would do it in the 1300s. The first one I did, I actually mixed my own inks, created the black out of acacia. So it was, I did it. It took forever. It was fun to do the first time. I'll never do that again. Same with fresco. I learned how to fresco, and the one thing I learned about fresco is I'm never frescoing anything.
Yeah, I feel that way about drywall, but that's different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can paint your portrait. I can't paint a wall.
So Ryan, what is art your full-time job? Because it's Ryan. It's in your email address that you're design. So.
Well, yeah, my day job, I do marketing and design for a company called Ecological Fibers. We make all different kinds of papers for packaging and book bindery, and I do a lot of graphic design for them. And then I've been a freelance designer for a long time. But art's always kind of been second to me. And there's kind of a reason that I don't go full-time Masonic artist.
Because you have a mortgage? Is that why?
That's true. Yeah, getting Masons to buy art. That's
there you
always, go. No, but this what I'm about to say is pissed off some people. So
welcome to the show. We'll love it.
The problem is what I've seen with Masonry is once you decide to go, this is my income with arts or crafts or anything like that, sales are what drive you. Obviously, you have to make money to make a living and stuff like that. And I've noticed that a lot of times it cheapens over time because, frankly, there's not a lot of Masons out there who will spend more than $50 on anything unless it has their name on it. And it's kind of harsh to say, but it's true.
Real.
Yeah. Masons will share, and it's a sad fact, but Masons will go crazy over a T-shirt on Facebook, and then a painting that I spent 80 hours on will get, oh yeah, that's nice. And I don't want to turn into a T-shirt vendor. I firmly believe that the one thing I do not need to bring to Masonry is more T-shirts.
How about scarves? Can you do scarves?
Scarves are great.
There's enough scarf guys.
But for my role, I don't want to have to turn into something where I need to sell cheap stuff to make a living so that I can pay my bills.
Yeah, that's one thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead. No. I'll continue. I apologize.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I want to continue.
You're on the line of a thought here because I remember reading somewhere in your bio that you were concerned with the cheapening of our logo, with the cheapening of the marketing aspect of it, and it's one of the things you said you really didn't want to do, and you just restated that tonight. Which you can't deny that the square and compass is not the Great Lights in Masonry anymore. It's a logo. It's a Nike swoosh. It's the Reebok. It's all that stuff. It is put on everything and anything the cheapest way possible. It drives me absolutely crazy how it's treated. I mean, I can go online right now and buy a Masonic thong, and
not my size, hopefully.
And it's insane. So when I do stuff, I try to.
Is that an Eastern Star thong? Is that?
I wouldn't know.
Would that? I'm trying to. All right, I'm sorry.
I don't even want to envision that.
I actually, when I do my history of Masonic arts presentations in lodges, I started off with that photo, and I say, if anybody doesn't have a problem with that, I'll stop right now.
Right.
Usually they let me go, but yeah, it drives me absolutely crazy, and I just personally, I think if you're going to call something the Great Lights in Masonry, you shouldn't stick it on the cheapest piece of crap that you can find to try to sell a lot of them. That's just me. I'm obviously in the minority,
You had mentioned too, and I'm repeating myself here. I know I've mentioned this, but that you would never produce anything but the finest artwork and prints that are created to promote the greatness of the fraternity. And I've kind of said this in a couple occasions earlier. The Holy Saints John comes to mind, and to me, I think it is your greatest work of art.
Oh, thank you.
Which in my opinion, and this is my opinion that probably thousands of people are going to hear, is that it should be in every lodge in the world.
Except Pennsylvania.
Except Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we have to cut one of those Johns
in the
out.
world should have those prints hanging on their walls, because that's part of what we're about. We celebrate those.
Well, they
those
do.
holidays.
It's a circle and two lines, right?
Yeah, circle and two lines, exactly. Now, your work is magnificent. I showed my wife, and she said, "You're really good."
Oh,
she equates you with the old masters.
What a compliment.
well, most of those old guys were drunks and had anger issues, so I'll take that as a compliment.
My wife associates me with the Dutch masters. It's not as exciting. And Garcia Vega. Oh, Larry.
We need a break.
No, we don't. We just need you to stop talking and let Ryan do some talking. So, Ryan, are you working on any big pieces right now?
In your new studio.
Oh yeah, my new studio. I just finished a portrait of Pike for someone. I got to get that to him in the next couple of weeks.
Santa Claus?
So is it going to get torn down?
Yeah, no, really. Yeah. There's a conversation.
We don't care. We'll get right into it. But yeah somebody's going to run in and like throw red paint on your paint to stop you from doing a Southern artist.
So I painted him in red.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
So I finished that. I am starting on a good size piece of the aftermath of a degree. I got a model to lie on the floor as if he has been attacked, and put some symbolism into that. I've sketched it out quite a bit. So I'm going to be starting on that pretty soon. I do have a couple of patents that I'm working on right now that are completely customized, so I got to finish those. I just did a charter for a new lodge, which was pretty exciting. So that I'm gilding as soon as I get it back. They had to send it around to get all the Grand Lodge officers to sign it.
Yeah,
Once I get that,
the term patent, I just learned that last week. I was I'm a Masonic dummy, I guess.
Yeah, why don't you enlighten us?
Okay, yeah. So I mean, like I was at I got my Royal Order of Scotland degree, and they said, in about 6 months you'll receive your patent in the mail. So it's, Brian, you can explain it better. What is a patent?
For lack of a better term, it's a certificate of recognition that usually, if it's in a blue lodge, is signed by a master, the secretary, and it typically says, let everybody be known that I'm a Mason now. That's the typical way
Except
of doing it.
in a really cool way. Right.
In a really cool way, sometimes.
So it's a really cool dues card.
Up for my lodge, every member of my lodge gets a patent of mine when they become a Master Mason, and I changed the wording on it as less of a patent but more of a charge. So instead of us putting the name on it for him, he has to sign his own name, and by signing his name, he pledges to be an active member of the lodge and to continue learning and pass on the tradition. So I kind of like that a little bit more than just saying, look, I did it. Because in my research with Masonry and my thoughts on how the craft works and stuff like that, the one part of Masonry that I don't agree with is when they say, you're a Master Mason, congratulations, you've reached the pinnacle of your experience. Like, Master Mason is just the starting line. All right, go do your thing. Now's the time to continue on. By no means should the third degree be thought as the end of a journey. So that's what I did with the patent.
Cool. I want one.
Now, is that something that you have? Now, do you make some of that stuff available in mass? Like if a lodge wanted to use your patents, is this something that's a print?
Yeah, no, everything I do with the exception of the authentic ones are prints, and I can do them in bulk. They do take quite a bit of time to do. but the printing is expensive, and I don't really mark it up that much. So if you can buy in bulk, without the names on it, I can knock down the price quite a bit. That's what's good about, I call it the Ancient York patent, is because you don't have to put a name on it other than your lodge name and your Grand Lodge. So it's very easy to do those in bulk. It's also the most articulate gilding one. So though it's easy for me to print, it is a pain in the butt to do all the gold on that.
And you said you're doing all that by hand, no matter what, or on each one. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. So basically, the way it works is you get this print. I have a great printer who I've been using since I started. Once I get the prints back, you put a specific kind of glue down. You let it dry. You take gold, very, very thin piece of gold. You put it down on it, and you can either glue it, rub it in, or in some cases I hammer it on because I want to get the texture. So I have, they're kind of like metal dies. If you ever worked with metal, like you want to stamp your key, I have a couple of those with very specific patterns that I go on. And sometimes it takes 300, 400, 500 hammers to get the texture in, which my wife loves.
Resonates through the house.
Yes, it does.
It helps the baby sleep.
Yeah, well, it doesn't anyway, so who cares?
So I don't want to step on Larry's toes.
Well,
but,
he already threw his papers on the floor. He's done.
So
We're off script at this point.
Yeah. So not to change subject here, but or change gears. But earlier we were talking about this art show in May in the DC area, and some of the other American artists that you might be showing some artwork with. And Larry said I wasn't allowed to talk about it because he wanted to ask you.
Now's the right time.
So Larry, go ahead and ask him.
No, go ahead, Jason. You started it.
So tell us more about this art show.
Yeah, so like I said, it's from the Association of Masonic Arts, which is an international organization. It's in North, Central, South America, Africa, Asia, Australia, and Europe. Is that all of them? Yeah. I'm looking at the website right now to make sure that I get everything right. But they've done a couple of them, and they call them the Apollo Festival. The first one that I knew of was in Brazil in 2015, which was kind of funny because I had made a name for myself, and as an artist, and I got an email saying, "I want you to come to this." And as a Mason who has only been a Mason for a few years, when you get an email saying, "Yeah, get on a plane, we'll take you to Brazil." Like, yeah, I'm gonna wake up with one kidney. This is gonna be awesome. But I didn't know about the organization at the time. But I heard nothing but amazing things about this event.
Did you have to bring any balloons back with you when you came back to America?
Yeah, just hold on to this bag. Just don't let anybody.
Right.
But so this festival went down in Brazil, and it went amazing. I heard nothing but insanely great things about this, and they called it the Apollo Festival. So this year it's going to be in May, I think around May 10th. It's going to be in Alexandria, and there's going to be artists from around the world coming in, and it's going to be something. I don't think it's ever happened in America before. I'm not sure how involved it is in America. I was actually the first ambassador to it from America. Now there's 4, I believe.
Is this an exhibit of artists' work, or is it a congress where you all get together and talk about your art, or how does?
I believe it's going to be both. I know there's definitely going to be art on display because I'm trying to get 4 new works done for it. And in fact, I'm going to be toning down my patents for quite some time because I just need to work on this.
As a Masonic cartoonist, am I allowed to even show up in the parking lot? No. Okay.
Yeah, there's goats in most of his cartoons.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Pete, I think a new cartoon series. You got some inspiration. Keister stashing from Brazil.
Yeah, I did.
On that note,
so I do. So when I met you up in Attleboro or North Attleboro, wherever that lodge is, I noticed a lot of people complimenting you on your Santa Claus painting.
Oh,
how many people refer to your Albert Pike as Santa Claus? Not in a bad way. They just
really
they don't
pissed him off.
Well,
man.
no, they don't know. They don't know Albert Pike. If you're not from the South, you're not an Albert Pike fan.
Well, luckily Santa Claus is from the North, so he's safe.
The funny thing, I thought it was a pretty good representation of him, and it was more people that were saying, "Is that Santa Claus?" But there was actually more people going, "Who's that?" And then what really gets me is I'm up here and I see people wear Scottish Rite pins going, "Who's that?" I'm like,
no, but I love the stuff, and I think I don't know. It kind of reminds me of a little known hometown artist, N.C. Wyeth from my hometown.
He's a plug.
Yeah, well, he's been dead for 100 years.
He's not a sponsor though.
Treasure Island and a bunch of other things he did.
It's Andrew Wyeth, right?
Well, Andrew is his son.
Oh.
Yeah, NC illustrated Treasure Island and things like that. Then Andy Wyeth was more like kind of landscapes and some and his ugly redheaded girlfriend.
I wouldn't know anything about that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. And then Andy's son named Jamie drew a pig. That's his highlight of his career
in 3rd grade.
Yeah.
So Ryan, you I'm a big podcast listener. Not just Masonic stuff, but all the Masonic podcasts as well. And I know that you were just not recently, but in May, you were on, don't tell me, the Cult of Personality.
Yep.
Right. So for our listeners, if you, you want to have your head explode, that was a great, I mean, anything that Greg Kaminsky puts out is just over the top. And he was on, the Brought to Light episode a little bit ago. And technical difficulties. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, good. Yeah. But that episode in particular was pretty intense, and I think that you guys started to speak about some of the Kabbalah and your you have the Tree of Life painting. Is that correct?
The Sephiroth. Yeah, you have that.
Yeah.
I've seen that.
Yeah, I have a Tree of Life illuminated document that I did actually. So that one also has the gold worked into it, and I did it in a Celtic style just because last name's Flynn.
For all those Celtic Hebrews out there, yes.
Yeah, exactly.
And you spoke a little bit on that episode, and I don't want to steal any of you and Greg's thunder, so I'd suggest our listeners listen to that. But could you give us a brief overview of your Codex series?
Oh yeah. So, as I mentioned before, I studied the Renaissance. I still study. I'm reading 2 books on it right now. One of the things that I loved is the idea of a codex. In layman's terms, codex is a notebook. You write down your observations as an artist in them. The famous ones, of course, are Leonardo da Vinci, where he wrote down everything and anything that he could put in his head, he'd put in the notes. He also wrote it backwards so no one could read it or understand it. But he would make simple observations about how the face droops over age to the flight of birds that everybody knows, Vitruvian Man, all that kind of stuff. And I thought I'd love to do that. So I was in the middle of memorizing the middle chamber lecture while I was a senior deacon. And I thought, well, let's research this a little bit. And I started writing down notes in one of my notebooks. And I did a little sketch of what I thought the pillar would look like. And all of a sudden I thought, it'd be great to actually do a Codex series of the middle chamber lecture. So I did 3. One is the pillars, one is the staircase, and the other one is geometry. And I decided to put out 100 of them with gold accents on them, and they went nuts. It was my first prints that I offered other than the stained glass windows. And people went absolutely crazy.
Do you have any of those sets left?
10.
All right. I want one of those.
He has
for my basement. I have a huge project I'm doing. Well, I'll go on your website after the show.
We'll talk to you. I'll talk to you.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, they went nuts. And I every time I bring some to a place where I'm talking, and they're gone by the time I leave. So I was really happy with that. And that kind of started off me on this notebook kind of style that I've done for a while. But yeah, it's got a lot of hidden stuff in it. It's got a lot of numerology. I've got some Kabbalah in it. A lot of obviously Masonic symbolism, but just hints of it. I didn't want to put too much into it because I wanted to keep the notebook / codex theme going. Wasn't going to write anything in depth in there, but yeah, they went nuts. I still can't believe I've sold 90 of them.
Wow, that's great.
Ryan, you kind of hinted at something earlier, and it made me think, as Freemasons, we're kind of self-centered, thinking everything revolves around Freemasonry, and
What?
every little piece of symbology is by these Masonic geniuses from the 1700s and whenever. There's a guy I've been following on Twitter. You might be familiar with him.
Donald Trump?
No. His name's like Apollyon or something. Apoll, like Apollo, but Jan something. And he just posts all kinds of weird drawings. But what I'm learning is from like the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, so many artists were into all this mystical stuff.
The esoteric part.
That were Masons or they weren't Masons. It was just kind of like the thing. And you can explain that.
Yeah, in my history of arts presentation, Masonic arts presentation, one of the things that I try to make it very apparent is, and this Freemasons don't like hearing this, but it's true. Masonry doesn't own the knowledge that we teach. It is knowledge that has been passed down for millennia, organized into what we now call Freemasonry. So the ideas of Neoplatonic thought, Kabbalah, sacred geometry, that sort of stuff existed well before the formation of the Grand Lodge. And that stuff was very, very popular during the Renaissance, specifically. Not to get too deep into a history lesson, but to narrow it down to a specific thing. So in Florence in the 15th century, you had the Medici. At that time, it was very popular and a great way to show how rich you were to own books. That's what started the Renaissance. And one of the Medici, Cosimo Medici, decided to start a library, and he started paying all these people to start doing what the fad was at the time, which was copying old works. So he started copying Plato for the first time into Tuscan and then Latin, and making them available for his rich friends to kind of look at. That formed something called the Platonic Academy, which he started in Florence, where these men would get together, get out of the real world for a second, and talk about this esoteric stuff. There's a great tie to Freemasonry with that. And of course, what I love about that is when this academy was brought to its fruition, he also invited artists to come in and kind of work off of that. So you had this great influx of the use of the old ways in art, and that's what eventually became the Renaissance. So if you look at work back then, you're going to see things that are very familiar. If you want a perfect example of this, I do a presentation on a painting called The Three Philosophers, and it's by a Venetian artist named Giorgione. Everybody go, Giorgione, Three Philosophers. Look it up and tell me that that's not a Masonic painting. There's very direct symbolism.
Okay, wait, my thumbs hurt. Hold on. I can't.
So the feeling that I kind of used to think was, I used to think, oh, Freemasonry, we're kind of this like little underground pocket of knowledge. But in that pocket of knowledge universe, we're the pop music. We're the pop music, the mainstream part of that esoteric thought. We're the part that the public has heard about. But there's so many other groups and organizations that were back then that were doing the same thing. They just, didn't get popular like we did.
Well, it really is this is the way we came to be. We had a very odd transformation throughout history. Some of the Masonic lore that we have doesn't really make a lot of sense, historically speaking. For example, the hidden handshakes and passwords and operative stonemasons going to workshop to prove that they were master masons. That didn't happen. The first time that we actually have evidence of handshakes in stonemasonry was in Scotland after this, and it was after Freemasonry existed. So in operative medieval stonemason workshops, you worked on one job for your whole life, took centuries to create something. And if you were a master mason or master of the compasses, as it's called, as Campermistro in Italian, you this is actually one of my favorite things I've learned about masonry. A Freemason at that time was someone who worked in free stone mason, free soft stone rock. And a master of that was an artist. So your sculptors, your stained glass window artists, your plasterers, those were all considered Freemasons at the time through the term. We now use the term artist, but the term artist didn't come around until the Renaissance. Before that, you were just a craftsman. So when you look back at the correct time frame and you start looking for what we now call Masonic symbolism, you're going to find it there. It's just not going to be Masonic as we think of it right now. But it doesn't mean it's no less important.
We just made a lot of Masons sad.
Yeah. Hey, Larry here, Ryan.
He woke up.
Yeah.
I woke up, and one of the things that fascinates me is the endurance of Sophia. Did you have a model for that?
I did.
She's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I mean, in case you're wondering, since this is like a radio broadcast and you guys can't see the picture, go to the site and look up the endurance of Sophia.
Is it safe for work?
Is it safe for work? No.
Okay.
Well, yeah, it's artistic. It's a masterpiece, so it would be probably, yeah.
It's not interpretive.
And there's a blue towel placed geographically, so things are not exposed. But she's gorgeous. She really is, and I envy you for having her as a model. Wow.
It's funny. You know, it's a different mindset when your wife's okay with it. But it really is, as an artist, when you work with a model, and I've been working with live models since I was in middle school. Well,
see, that was my next question. I was trying to go about that. That wasn't your wife, was it?
Or Larry, you could let him answer the last question.
Okay.
No, it's not my wife. So I actually belong to this group online that they're awesome. And if you can't get a model in front of you, they basically have a studio set up where they'll take photos for you. So they'll bring in a model, you tell them what pose you want, and they will pose her for it. So I wasn't actually in the same room with her. I worked off a photograph of her, but she posed for that painting. And when I saw the pose come out, I was like, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was looking for.
And do they set the lighting up in the where you want it to?
Yeah, you just gotta give them as best instructions as possible. Like I wanted to do one with a muse. So I have this woman leaning over a man who's kind of whispering in her ear. And I wanted it to be very dramatic lighting. So you have dark shadows, highlights. So that one they did for me. But what they do is they put them on a giant turntable and spin them slowly and take photos at every 10 degrees, for example.
Oh, wow.
So that you can actually get a 360 degree look because you're not in the studio with them. I now have a studio in my house where I have areas set up for models, which is great. I actually just bought some wardrobe for a model shoot that I'm going to do probably next month. But yeah, I tend to work from photos now just because no one has the patience to sit for a painting anymore. Some of my paintings take an extremely long time. Sophia actually took me a very long time to paint because I paint in an older manner. Basically, it's called glazing, where instead of just painting the color, I want the colors to be a little bit more complex. So I paint transparent layer over transparent layer, so it gives a more complex look and realistic facial expression, I guess you could say.
That's a really old way of doing it.
And you're mixing your own paints too, like with tempera or like. Or...
No, I had done that before for a commission I did for a lodge down in Maryland, but now there's no point to it. It's oil paints are so readily available in tubes that you just don't need to do it anymore. Especially with I use some pretty expensive paints, so I really don't want to mess up.
Right.
So, Ryan, we'll probably go to break here in just a second, but I have a very serious question. Mm-hmm. What is the market for a 400-pound big guy to get his photos taken to be a model? And what's the pay?
He'll sit still as long as you want him to.
Well, like I said, you be a Masonic medium.
I gotta understand. Am I paying you or are you paying me?
No, I need to get paid. And like, yeah, Pete's right. He said, by the Masonic sizing chart, I'm a medium.
I just don't know how to answer that.
For those of you who are and have stayed with us and have been listening to this, you can you can go to Facebook, Ryan J. Flynn Artist. Type it in Facebook, and you can bring his Facebook page up, like him, and you can see a lot of the works that he's working on and a lot of communications that go on. It's really a great site. Or you can go directly to his site where he can sell you things, or you can look at them, and you go to www.ryanjflynn, all one word.
He'd prefer that you buy them.
He'd prefer that you buy them, absolutely.
Yeah, take a screenshot and print it out on your...
Larry, finish the URL, www.ryanjflynn.com. There we go.
There we go. Yes, indeed. I'm going to conclude this, and you're welcome to stay with us as long as you want.
Larry's got to pee.
Yeah, I do. Phoenix Masonry gave you an awesome compliment. They said that Flynn put some mystery into his documents, some codes and symbols, and you have to really look closely to find them and decipher them. And they also said that when you stop and analyze what Flynn is producing, you have to admire the ingenuity, the majestic style, the novel methods, and the sheer artistic quality of each piece. You certainly are a phenomenal artist, and we have enjoyed having you on the show tonight.
Hear, hear.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you, and I've had a blast. Actually, this has been really fun.
Well, I'm sorry, Larry, trying to run you out of here. That's
Man, get the hell
Like I
out.
said, you're welcome to stay with us until
now we can ask you some real questions.
Yeah.
Do you have a crock pot?
Do I have a crock pot? I actually have 4 crock pots.
Attaboy.
See?
He's a worshipful master.
Well,
He's
yeah,
got
he appreciates
I
slow
got
cooking.
one single one and a triple.
Nice. I have that same one. Costco, right? Costco?
All right.
Costco, that is right. Yeah.
Yeah, I got that one.
Yeah.
Let's go to break.
Nice.
We're going to take a quick break.
We'll be back.
Oh, this is important stuff.
Bye-bye.
We're not really going anywhere, but we're taking a break.
And we're back, and we are with Ryan J. Flynn, Masonic artist, that you can find at www.ryanjflynn.com. You can find him on Facebook. And we decided to keep him around. Larry tried to kick him out, but Ryan, you're still here. Say hello.
So, Ryan, do you have anything to offer for the good of Freemasonry of this podcast in particular? Yeah. Anything besides you have the thing coming up in May? Anything else you have going on Masonically that you'd like to let people know about?
Not right now. I mean, I'm working on a couple new presentations that I've been going to be most likely traveling around doing. One of them is kind of how to bring the arts back into your lodge, which is very easy to do if you just want to put a little effort into it.
Buy your prints.
Yeah, or buy someone's prints. I don't care. Just buy prints.
What part of the United States where do you live?
I live in New Hampshire.
Okay, so you're pretty much travel distance from,
Oh, I've been all over now. I did a couple of presentations at some symposiums, and everybody started flying me around. So I've been out to Colorado.
I just drove up to Winnipesaukee. It's a long ass drive. Dude.
So if someone's willing to give you the ticket, you'll fly anywhere.
Yeah, as long as I do it on a weekend. It's hard to do with a family, and I don't have a lot of vacation time, so I kind of take it very seriously. I want to spend it with my family when I can. Just so, but weekends, I'll be happy to go to a lodge. Just not for the remainder of this year, just because of the new kid. But I've gone everywhere. Like I said, from the Carolinas all the way to Colorado, everywhere. It's kind of crazy how far I've traveled with Masonry.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, when I saw Ryan, he had kind of in this one little lodge room. Well, it's an old lodge room. He had all his work set up in the east, and it was pretty glorious.
Cool.
It was kind of cool until I hung Victor Mann's picture in between
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Yeah. It was like St. John on one side, the other St. John, and we held Victor up in the middle, and it was like the three tenets of Freemasonry, the three pillars. Yeah, kind of way to ruin a moment.
The three tenements.
Three tenements. Oh, so what do you got? We got Dex, Jason. We're gonna.
We got Seth. Seth has got some new pieces for us, and then I think we'll listen to Seth, and we'll go right into the news, and then we'll wrap up and get out of here with some banjo music.
You're about to enter
Corpora Obscurum,
the realm of weird fraternal organization.
Leave your Freemasonry behind.
Prepare to meet druids, caliphs, and wild creatures.
Knock thrice
And enter at your own risk.
Welcome to another Corpora Obscurum Masonic Light Podcast listener. Today we're going to talk about a fraternal group that is little known, but a great force for good. The Knights of Peter Claver. The Knights of Peter Claver are one of the largest African American Catholic fraternal organizations in the world. Talk about a niche market. The order is named for St. Peter Claver, the Spanish priest, who ministered to African slaves. Originally founded in Mobile, Alabama, the organization is now headquartered in New Orleans, Louisiana. It is often thought of as the African American version of the Knights of Columbus, although neither group discriminates based upon race. The Knights divide themselves into 6 divisions: the Knights of Peter Claver, the Knights of Peter Claver Ladies Auxiliary, Junior Knights, Junior Daughters, 4th Degree Knights, and Ladies of Grace. They state their purpose being, "Our purpose is to render service to God and His Holy Church, render aid and assistance to the sick and disabled, and promote social and intellectual association among our members." Want to learn more about America's fraternal history? Visit the J.H. Rathbone Museum in person in Lafayette, Indiana, and online at www.jhrathbonemuseum.org.
Good news, everyone!
Masonic Light News. News not fit to print.
As part of the rising tide of hysteria and misinformation, crowds gathered in Washington, D.C. at the statue of revered Masonic scholar, illustrious Brother Albert Pike, to protest the perceived existence of a statue honoring his memory. Regardless that he's modeled in civilian suit and not even the tiniest speck of Confederate uniform or any other Civil War reference whatsoever, the mere fact that he once took a stand against the perceived abuses of the federal government was enough to send protesters into waves of apoplexy. The shadowy profile of Grand Archivist could be seen shaking his head and wondering aloud, "Can't we all just get along?" And that's the Masonic news. So mote it was.
Oh, thank you, Brother Jack. Wow. Now, Ryan, this is where it gets even worse.
For you.
Larry, are we have nothing else coming up, right?
No, yeah, there's things going on.
All right, Jason, what do you have coming up Masonically? Anything?
Oh, when I put me on the spot. we got Lodge in the Woods. We got Goose and Gridiron. We've got getting ready for Scottish Rite reunion, where you and I are in the 8th degree together, and I think Jack as well. Correct?
Hello.
Yeah. And well, the recording will be out after we do this, but I and hopefully some of you guys will be on or visiting Castle Line Virtual Lodge on Wednesday
in Manitoba.
But we'll be doing it from home. You're going to go?
Yeah, we're all going to be on your computer.
Yeah.
So.
On your computer?
No, we're going to go.
Are you familiar with that, Ryan?
You're coming out of my place.
Ryan, are you familiar with the virtual lodges?
I've heard of them. I'm not a member of any. Haven't really.
I was like a big skeptic, and then we had the current master of Castle Island Lodge.
I always want to say Virtual Island, but it's Castle Island.
Castle Island Lodge, and it sounds really neat, especially when you think of the geography of Manitoba, where, if you want to go get a gallon of milk, it's 700 miles. It's not like, you can go from New Hampshire to Connecticut to Vermont in like 5 seconds, but out there it's,
12 seconds. But
Well, it's pretty close.
So we'll be huddled around either Larry's house or Monarch Studios and be at Castle Island together. That'll be fun. And I think that is, I think that's about it.
Jack?
Just getting ready for Lodge in the Woods. That's the big thing for us. And coming back from summer break. So we will we'll light the lights and get everybody back into the swing of things in September.
Oh, Pennsylvania One Day class.
Oh, exciting.
I didn't hear what you said. What?
Chirp, chirp.
Did you say something?
Crickets.
What do I have? I have nothing. I mean, I have like my regular Blue Lodge and all that stuff starts up again, but I'm really focusing on my job as Junior Deputy Grand Tall Cedar and Principal Conductor of Work and Council. Now this thing in Scottish Rite got me sucked into, so I'm busy.
So Masonic Light degree.
Yeah. And at some point, I'm going to Spain and Italy, and maybe I'll see some of. What? Yeah, I'll be going to Barcelona, Rome, and Seville. So maybe Ryan can tell me what to look at.
Just go to Sacred Familia. That's all you have to do. Barcelona.
Okay.
See the cathedral. It's number one on my bucket list.
Is it all Francisco de Goya, or is there other artists there, or who does it?
Who did that? Gaudi.
Okay.
There's nothing like it in the world.
Well,
you're gonna go into that cathedral and look up and just be like, there's no way a guy came up with this.
Okay, that's definitely on my bucket list. I'll take some grainy VGA pictures with my cell phone, and I'll send them to you. It'll look like I use a potato.
We'll print them at 1200 DPI. Yeah.
Larry, do you have anything going on?
Other than our lodge starting up Tuesday, next Tuesday? No, not really. Goes in gridiron, but that's...
What about you, Ryan? What do you have going on?
Daddy stuff?
Diapers?
Lack of sleep. Wondering if I've made a giant mistake in my life.
You mean coming on the show? Yeah.
No, in a couple weeks we're coming back from being dark, and our lodge is thriving right now. It's crazy. We got I know we're going to be reading a couple of petitions, and we got a couple of guys getting ready for their second degree. It's good. We kind of changed how we do things in our lodge, and it's been working fantastic. We now are very selective. We don't hand out petitions anymore. We kind of wait for us to know them. And we slowed down in between degrees. It usually takes 4 or 5 months for a guy to go through each degree because we actually teach him stuff. I know, but it's awesome.
No. The four of us, you can't hear our sarcasm over the phone. The four of us in this room agree with you. But the powers that be, won't let us do that.
I'm moving to New Hampshire.
Go Blue Lightning.
Oh yeah, we even added a chamber of reflection.
That's too much.
Awesome.
We would be excommunicated if we did that here.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up.
Thanks for that. That's great. Thank you.
But come up and visit Nashville, and you can see it.
I will. I tried to go when I was up in Winnipesaukee, but nobody got back to me from the lodge. So I had
from my lodge.
No. Winnipesaukee, north of Wolfsboro. It was. Right down there. I don't know.
Are you going to go to Masonic Con again next year if they have it?
I believe I'm speaking at it.
Okay, so I guess you're going.
Yeah.
Unless he just, Skypes in.
I mean, last year was like 95 degrees, so I didn't really make too much money selling scarves in 95 degree weather.
But you made a lot of friends.
Well, yeah, and then
Masonic thongs. I'm telling you, that's what you need to sell next year.
God.
Well, I just say
an artist that could
the entertainment in Providence cost more than what I made selling scarves. We'll just say that.
And there were thongs.
There were no thongs. Oh, so Larry, take us out of here.
Absolutely. A little music, please.
There will actually be music.
Yeah, there actually will be.
And chickens.
Special thanks to Monarch Studios, our producer and co-host, Jason Lewis, who, again, I say this every time, takes us to great lengths. Wave there so everybody can see you. Jack Harley, our news director and official host of the show.
Oh, I'm official now.
He's official. Yes, he is.
I want my salary doubled.
To R.C. McCorvey, brother on the street, we do have your interview. We're working on it. You did a good job. And Seth Anthony for his insight into fraternities we had no idea existed. And, oh boy, here we go. Assistant Director of Moral Support You go, girl.
All right, that's a win. That's a win.
Audience estimator, Adam Million. Our audience response analyst, who's lukewarm. And our behavior consultant, Wyatt Behoovja. We do have a biblical scholar, by the way.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yes, we do. Verily I say. And this is a good one here. Our creative director, Drew Blank.
There you go.
There we go. Right on.
Drew Blank.
And concluding with our new law firm of Lowball and Lynch. This is Larry Maris saying thanks for listening.
I'm Pete Ruggieri.
Jason Lewis.
And our guest, Ryan Flynn. Say goodbye, Ryan.
Goodbye, Ryan.
Attaboy. You got the hang of it now. And this is Jack. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Ryan.
That was fun.
Thanks for tolerating us.
No, that was fun.
All right. Do we have fan mail or hey mail? Do we have any of the bot automatic?
If we have any, we'll splice it in later.
All right.
You know, I usually should make the announcement, though. We don't do that. It should be a regular item.
I like your tracks. You sexy. You should support my site.
So you get what this is all about, Ryan.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Jason, bring us back.
All right. Are you good, Larry?
You're going to bring us back.